Hi guys, Dr. Mel here. We are starting electrostatics in grade 11 now. We're going to revise grade 10 work, and you have to know you are going to answer an electrostatic question. There will be an electrostatic question in the grade 12 exam. So make sure that you've got electrostatics revised and that you have all the knowledge so that you can get full marks for electrostatics. So let's have a look what we did in grade 10. So we know there's charges. As you recall, you've got protons inside the nucleus of a atom. And an atom will have electrons on the outside. So we've got charges on the inside and the outside, and atoms will be neutral. So what happened in grade 10 is that we showed you if we have the force of friction and we wipe against certain objects, there'll be a transfer of electrons. So electrons can either be transferred from the cloth to the object in order for it to become negative because it was gaining electrons. Or I can take another object, I can wipe it against a charge, and it will lose electrons. Now, if it loses electrons, you know it will have a positive charge. Now, most of the materials we find have a tendency to keep the electrons or to give it away. Now, the two that I can think of is PVC, which is polyvinyl chloride, which is plastic. They will usually take up electrons and gain electrons and become negative, and perspex will rather give electrons away. Therefore, it will have a positive charge. So that was grade 10 revision. And if we have a look at the induction process, but I like to see that you recognize that this is a negative charge there. And can you see it's pushing these negative charges away? And that's part of the forces that we are going to calculate in this theme. So we've got charge forces, for charge objects, not forces, and they will have a force on each other. So please remember, if it's negative, it gained electrons. If it is positive, it actually gave electrons away. What do you have to know? What's the unit of a charge? The unit of a charge is a coulomb, named after a French physicist, Coulomb. In actual fact, his name is with 72 other scientists, not just physicists, written on the Eiffel Tower. They actually have the names written down of French scientists that made a difference in the world. Coulomb, and abbreviated with a C like that. So make sure that you know that. We are going to get to the Coulomb charge now again. And make sure that you see on your information sheet that they actually provide you with the charge of 1 electron. Now, if you see there, the charge of an electron is 1.6 times 10 to the power of minus 19. It's very, very small. It's in Coulomb. And remember, it's an electron, so it's got a negative charge. Likely, the proton will also have a charge of 1.6.10 to the minus 19 because they are equal in charge, but that will be positive. So make sure that you, when you do some calculations, that you know on your information sheet, all these information will be provided. Forces, we've done in grade 10, that like forces, two positive charges will repel each other. They will move away from each other. Where the negative and the negative is also like charges, will also repel and move away from each other. On the other hand, when it's opposite charges, a plus and a minus, can you see they will attract each other? So they will actually move towards each other. Now, there is a principle that we've done in grade 10 that I just quickly want to remind you that we said when I work out the charges, then if Q1 and Q2 touches each other, you can calculate the new charges by adding those two together and dividing it with 2. They will have equal charges after touching each other because they want to neutralize. But the actual fact is it's been conserved. It will be the same. So the total charge before will be exactly the same as the total charge after. So make sure that you remind yourself about the conservation of charges. You'll be conserving energy and momentum, all of those concepts later. But in this case, it's the conservation of charges. And then there's another equation on your information sheet. I hope you have recollection of this equation. This says to me, I can quantize, I can actually quantify how many electrons, this is the number of electrons that's been transferred. This is the charge of 1 electron, and we just did that just now. This is on your information sheet, and that is this new charge. So if I tell you, I want to know how many electrons is in 2 coulomb, you just divide that with the charge of 1 electron, and then you know exactly the number of electrons. That's on your information sheet. Just make sure that you utilize that. Finally, before we get to the Coulomb law, just a revision on the unit of charges. Now, we already established that it's a Coulomb, but they might give it to you in milli-Coulomb, which means it's 10 to the power minus 3 Coulomb. Or microcoulomb, 10 to the power minus 6 Coulomb. The one we usually use is nanocoulomb. Very small charge, 10 to the minus 9. And the smallest one that we use at school level is a picocoulomb, which is 10 to the minus 12. So just make sure it's not on your information sheet, that you know how to convert. And we've done some of this in the first themes when we did dimensional analysis. So if you are a little bit unsure, go and have a look at dimensional analysis, which we've done right in the beginning of each grade. Right, what's the magnitude? What's the size? What's the quantity of this electrostatic force? Remember we said there's a repelling force, and here we said there's a attraction force. What is the size? So let's see. The electrostatic force, and I usually abbreviate it immediately with Fe so that you know it's electrostatic. You can recall that you already did gravity already. So make very focused attention to the fact that you're working with electrostatic force. What is it? It is directly proportional to the product of the magnitude of the charges. So I've got point charges Q1 and Q2, and this is directly proportional to the product. So it's multiply and it's directly proportional. Now, what does that mean? It means if I'm increasing the charges, the force will increase. If I'm decreasing the charges, the force will decrease. That is what the word directly proportional means. On the other hand, there's also a relationship with the distance between these charges, and it's inversely proportional. What it means that it's the inverse, it's the fraction over the distance, and it's the square. So I need to know it's a square. It's not equal, it's proportional. So you've got the values there. Make sure that you remember the square, and obviously we're going to work with an equation that's on your information sheet, but you need to be able to define. Let's see, when we write down this equation, we just now said we've got the force directly proportional to Q1 and Q2. We also said the force is inversely proportional to the square of the distance between them. I just want to tell you, you might find d square or even 1 over r square. It depends on the textbook or the equations that you use. It's all the same, all of them exactly the same. If I now go and I add these together, I've got F is directly proportional to Q1, Q2 over R square. And luckily, the mathematicians will be helping us when they take away this proportional sign, because we don't know how to work with that in physics. We have to work with an equal sign, and because we want to equalize this, we are putting in a constant. So your new equation will be the electric force is the product of the two charges and inversely proportional to the distance square. Make sure that you've got your value k, and we're going to have a look at that just now. Can you recall that you've seen a similar equation? Do you remember that you've done the force between two masses? And we did that when we did gravity. And Newton's law of universal gravitation was exactly derived at the same way that we now did Coulomb's law. It was directly proportional and it was inversely proportional. And the constant that Newton used is the constant G. So can you see the resemblance when we now say the electric force is equal to KQ1, Q2, R squared. And in matric, they'll ask you questions where you've got to use both these equations, and you'll be able to do it. I'm sure it's not that difficult. Right, let's just quickly see. I've got the electric force is equal to a constant Q1, Q2 over R squared. We're quite happy with that. Let's have a look at the value k. Now, if you go to your information sheet, you'll find the actual value of k on that sheet. It's got a value of 9 to the power of 9. Make sure that you copy that correctly. And you'll see the unit is Newton meters square per Coulomb square. Now, what's important about this fact is that I've got meters here. Do you see it's meters? Therefore, the distance has to be in meters. And do you see you've got Coulomb there? Therefore, these two have to be in Coulomb. Otherwise, your force will not be a Newton. So make sure that you've got the conversion correct so that you can do the calculations. Let's quickly have a look. I've got the electrical force or the electrostatical force between the charge 1 in Coulomb, charge 2 in Coulomb, and my distance, remember, in meter. Please, guys, remember that you've got to copy it correctly from the information sheet. Right, we are going to do a few examples in the next lesson, but just have this equation correctly copied with the value of k, 9 times 10 to the power of 9, and remember your R in meters and your Q in Coulomb, and remember then your answer will be in Newton. I hope you enjoy working with charges. Let's see. Can you define Coulomb's law? Yes, you can. You know it's the product of the two Q's. I almost write mass there. And you know it's inversely proportional to the distance square. Can you convert the units from nanocoulomb, for instance, to 10 times minus 9 coulomb? And you'll have to be able to get a resultant force, which we'll calculate now, and do some calculations. So let's go to the lesson where we'll do a few examples. Bye-bye.